I thought I was investing in our future. I thought the land was real. I thought her cousin was helping us. I was wrong about all of it. By the time I figured it out, my savings account was empty. And she was gone. I'm sitting across from Kriselda in this little restaurant in Pasig, watching her laugh at something I just said, and I swear to God I haven't felt this way in years. Maybe never. She's 29. I'm 62. I know how that sounds. I know what people back home would say. But when she looks at me like that, like I'm the only person in the room, none of that matters. Her hand reaches across the table and finds mine. Her fingers are warm and small, and they fit perfectly. She says, "I'm so happy you came, Burton. I was afraid you wouldn't." Every word. This is my first time in the Philippines, first time anywhere in Asia, really. I'm a guy from Indiana who worked the same factory floor for 37 years, and now I'm here in Manila with a beautiful woman who makes me feel like I'm not just some old widower waiting to die. She leans in closer and says, "You make me feel safe, you know that? I feel my chest tighten in the best way possible. Safe. When's the last time anyone needed me to make them feel safe?" We met online 6 months ago. One of those international dating sites that Brad, my buddy from work, told me was full of scammers. But I was so damn lonely. 3 years since Linda passed from cancer. 3 years of eating frozen dinners in front of the TV and talking to no one but the mailman. I joined the site just to have someone to talk to. Didn't expect anything. Then Kriselda messaged me first. She said she liked my profile picture, the one where I'm standing in front of my truck. She asked me about Indiana, about what I did for work, about my life. And here's the thing. She never once asked me for money. Not once in 6 months. She just listened. Really listened. When I told her about Linda, about how I held her hand in that hospital room and watched the life drain out of her eyes, Kriselda cried. I could see it on the video call. Real tears. She said, "Burton, you have such a big heart. You deserve to be happy again." No woman had said anything like that to me in so long. We talked every day. Morning coffee for me was evening wine down for her. She'd tell me about her job in customer service, about her family, about her dreams, small dreams, modest dreams, a little house someday, a garden, stability. She never asked for anything except my time, and I gave it gladly. Now I'm here and it's better than I imagined. She looks even more beautiful in person. Her smile is brighter, her laugh is real and unguarded. We spent the whole day walking around malls and markets, her arm linked through mine, and I felt like a kid again. People stared. I didn't care. She didn't seem to care either. We ate at this little place she knows. Some local spot with food I can't pronounce, but that tastes incredible. She orders for me, translates the menu, makes sure I don't accidentally eat something too spicy. She's taking care of me. When did anyone last take care of me? I ask her. What do you want to do tomorrow? She smiles and says, anything, as long as I'm with you. I believe her. Why wouldn't I? Everything about this feels right, feels real. After dinner, we walk along the street and she stops suddenly, turns to me and says, "Burton, I need to tell you something." My heart skips. She looks nervous. She says, "I'm falling in love with you. I know it's fast. I know we just met in person, but I need you to know. I don't even hesitate." I pull her close and say, "I'm falling for you too, Kriselda. I think I have been for months." She kisses me right there on the street, soft and sweet and full of promise. This is it. This is what I came here for. A second chance. A new beginning. Everything I thought I'd lost when Linda died. The next evening, Kriselda says she wants me to meet her family. I'm nervous as hell, but I say yes. Of course I say yes. She brings me to a house in a neighborhood that's a little rough around the edges but feels lived in and real. Music spills out from windows. Kids play in the street. Kriselda holds my hand as we walk up to the gate. She says, "They're going to love you. I told them all about you." An older woman comes out before we even reach the door. She's maybe in her 50s, round-faced and warm. Kriselda says, "Burton, this is my Ate Malu, my aunt. Malu doesn't just shake my hand. She pulls me into a hug like I'm already family. She says, "Welcome, welcome. Kriselda talks about you every day. Thank you for making our girl so happy." Her English is good, her smile genuine. I feel the tension leave my shoulders. She ushers us inside and there's food everywhere. A whole table spread out like they're celebrating something. Malu says, "Sit, sit. You must be hungry." I try to protest, but Kriselda laughs and says, "You can't say no to ate. You'll lose." So I sit and I eat, and I listen to them talk in Tagalog, catching bits and pieces, and I feel included even when I don't understand the words. Malu keeps looking at me with this approving expression, like I passed some test I didn't know I was taking. Then the door opens and a man walks in. He's maybe mid-40s, stocky build, confident stride. Kriselda stands up and says, "Burton, this is my cousin, Tito Jun. He works construction." Jun reaches out and shakes my hand firm. He says, "Good to meet you, Kuya. Heard a lot about you." His English is perfect, almost American. He's got this easy charm, the kind of guy who can talk to anyone. We sit and he asks me about the States, about my work, about what brought me to the Philippines. I tell him the truth. Retirement, loneliness, meeting Kriselda. He nods like he understands completely. He says, "You picked a good woman, Kuya. Kriselda is special, smart, loyal. She deserves someone who treats her right." I say, "That's what I intend to do." He grins and clinks his beer bottle against mine. The night goes on, and June starts talking about his work. He's animated, passionate. He talks about projects he's been on, buildings and subdivisions, land development. Then he leans in and says, "You know, Kuya, if you ever think about investing here, I know people. Good opportunities. Land is cheap right now. Prime areas. You could make good money." I smile politely and say, "I appreciate it, but I'm just here to spend time with Kriselda." June laughs and waves it off. He says, "Just saying, Kuya, if you ever want to put your money to work, I can help. But no pressure. Enjoy your time." Kriselda changes the subject and asks Malu about a relative, and the conversation shifts. I relax. It was just small talk, just a guy being friendly. Later that night, back at the small apartment Kriselda rents, she curls up next to me on the couch. The fan hums overhead, the street noise fades. She rests her head on my shoulder and says, "They loved you. Aunt Malu told me you're a good man." I kiss the top of her head and say, "I like them too. Your family is warm." She's quiet for a moment. Then she pulls back and looks at me seriously. She says, "Burton, I need to say something." My stomach tightens. She takes a breath and says, "I love you. I know it's only been a few days here in person, but I love you. I've loved you for months. I just needed to say it out loud." I feel my throat close up. I haven't heard those words since Linda. I say, "I love you too, Kriselda. I really do. And I do. God help me, I do." She kisses me, deep and slow, and I forget about everything else. The age difference, the distance, the doubts. In this moment, I'm just a man in love, and it feels like everything I needed. 3 weeks pass in a blur of happiness I didn't think I'd ever feel again. Kriselda and I fall into a rhythm. We wake up together, have coffee at the little cafe down the street, spend the days exploring or just talking for hours. She shows me her city. We visit churches and parks and street markets. I buy her little things, nothing extravagant, just tokens, a bracelet from a vendor, a scarf she admired. She always protests and says, "You don't have to buy me things," but I see how her eyes light up. I want to give her things. I want to make her happy. One afternoon, we're sitting in her apartment and she gets quiet. I ask, "What's on your mind?" She looks down at her hands and says, "I've been thinking about the future, about us." I reach over and take her hand. I say, "I think about that too." She says, "Rent here is so expensive, Burton. Every month I barely have enough left over after I pay for this place. I've been saving for years, hoping to buy a small house someday. Something simple, just enough space for a family. The word family hits me square in the chest. I never had kids with Linda. It just didn't happen. But hearing Kriselda talk about it makes me think maybe it's not too late for something. I say, what if we did that together? What if we found some land and built something small? Nothing fancy, just a place that's ours. Her eyes go wide. She says, you'd do that? For us? I say, why not? I've got savings. I'm not using them sitting in Indiana. If we're building a life together, let's really build it. She throws her arms around me and I can feel her trembling. She whispers, you have no idea what this means to me. The next day, she calls Tito Jun. I hear her speaking rapid Tagalog on the phone, and then she switches to English. She says, Burton wants to talk to you about land. Jun sounds excited even through the speaker. He says he'll come over right away. An hour later, he's sitting across from us in the apartment, all energy and enthusiasm. He says, Kuya, you're serious about buying land? I nod. I say, if the price is right and it's a good spot, yeah, something Kriselda and I can build on. Jun grins wide. He says, I know the perfect place. 1/2 hectare in Rizal province. Beautiful area. Mountain view. My friend owns it, but he needs to sell fast. He's moving to Dubai for work. It's a steal, Kuya. Way below market value. I ask, how much? Jun pulls out his phone and shows me some pictures. It looks green and peaceful, undeveloped but promising. He says, he's asking $20,000, but I can probably get him down to 18. For 1/2 hectare with that view, you won't find better. I feel a flutter of hesitation. That's a lot of money, but I've got nearly 70,000 in savings. This would be a significant chunk, but not everything. And if it means a future with Kriselda, if it means building something real, isn't that worth it? Kriselda squeezes my hand. She says, we don't have to decide now, baby. Think about it. But Jun leans forward. He says, only thing is, Kuya, my friend needs an answer soon. Another buyer is interested. Foreigner like you, actually. He's supposed to give an answer this week. I feel the pressure. I don't want to lose this. I look at Kriselda and she's looking back at me with hope in her eyes. She says softly, it would be ours, Burton. A real home. Together. I take a breath and say, okay, let's do it, but I want to see it first. Jun nods quickly. He says, of course, Kuya, of course, but my friend needs a deposit to hold it, just to make sure the other buyer doesn't snatch it up, maybe 10 or 15,000. Then we go see it, finalize everything, and you pay the rest. 15,000. I hesitate. Kriselda says, that's how it works here, baby. It's normal. You put down a deposit and they hold the property for you. I look at Jun. He looks honest, straightforward, and he's family. Kriselda's family. I say, all right, 15,000 deposit, but I want to see the land within the week. Jun shakes my hand. He says, you won't regret this, Kuya. I promise you. I wire the money the next morning from a Western Union. $15,000. The biggest single purchase I've made since buying my truck back in 2008. Jun messages me right away. He says the land is secured. He says the paperwork is being processed. He says we'll go see it as soon as the owner is back in town. I feel a mix of excitement and nerves. Kriselda is over the moon. She shows me photos on her phone of little houses, simple designs. She says, maybe something like this, small, just for us. I put my arm around her and say, whatever you want, and I mean it. I'd give her anything. 2 weeks go by. I keep asking Jun about seeing the land. He says, soon, Kuya. The owner had to extend his trip, but don't worry, everything is secured. Your deposit is safe. I want to believe him. I do believe him. But there's this small knot in my stomach that won't go away. I try to ignore it. Kriselda and I are still happy. We talk about paint colors and garden plans. She even starts looking at furniture online. It all feels real. but I can't shake the feeling that something's off. I ask Jun if I can see the paperwork. He says, "It's being processed, Kuya. Land titles here take time. Government is slow. You know how it is. I don't know how it is. I've never bought land in a foreign country." But I nod and say, okay. One night, I'm lying awake next to Kriselda, and I decide to call Brad back in Indiana. It's morning there. He picks up on the second ring. He says, "Burton, how's paradise?" I try to sound upbeat. I say, "It's good, man. Really good. Hey, I wanted to run something by you." I tell him about the land, about the deposit, about June. There's a long pause. Brad says, "You sent 15 grand to someone you just met?" I say, "He's Kriselda's cousin. He's family." Brad sighs. He says, "Burton, I'm going to be straight with you. That sounds like a scam. Deposits on land you haven't seen? Paperwork that's delayed? Come on, man. You're smarter than this." I feel defensive. I say, "You don't know the situation. Things work differently here." Brad says, "I know you're lonely. I know you miss Linda. But don't let that cloud your judgment. Just be careful, all right? Please." I tell him I will and I hang up, but his words stick with me. That night I barely sleep. The next morning, I bring it up with Kriselda. I say, "I want to see the land. This week, I need to see what I'm buying." She looks surprised. She says, "Of course, baby. I'll tell June." But when she calls him, he sounds annoyed. I can hear it even from across the room. He says something sharp in Tagalog. Kriselda's face hardens. She hangs up and turns to me. She says, "He says he'll arrange it. But Burton, why are you acting paranoid?" The word stings. I say, "I just want to see what I paid for. Is that unreasonable?" She crosses her arms. She says, "You're treating him like a criminal. He's my family. He's helping us." I soften my tone. I say, "I'm not accusing anyone. I just want to be smart about this." She doesn't look convinced. The warmth between us cools. Later that day, June messages me. He says we can go see the land on Saturday. I feel a small relief. Finally. But the tension with Kriselda doesn't fully lift. She's distant, distracted, on her phone more than usual. When I ask who she's texting, she says, "Just work." But something in her voice tells me that's not entirely true. Friday afternoon, Kriselda comes to me with tears in her eyes. My heart drops. I say, "What's wrong?" She sits down and takes my hand. She says, "It's Ate Malu. She needs surgery. Her gallbladder. The doctor says it's urgent." I ask, "How much?" Kriselda wipes her eyes. She says, $3,000. We don't have it, Burton. If she doesn't get the surgery soon, it could get worse. It could be life-threatening. I don't even hesitate. I say, "I'll cover it." She looks up at me, tears streaming. She says, "Really? You do that?" I say, "She's your family. Of course I will." She hugs me so tight I can barely breathe. She whispers, "Thank you. Thank you so much." I wire the money that afternoon, $3,000 to a hospital account Kriselda gives me. She says Malu is scheduled for surgery next week. I feel good about it. I'm helping. I'm part of this family now. But later, when I'm alone, I check my bank balance. 18,000 gone in 3 weeks. I still have over 50,000 left. It's fine. It's all for a good reason. But that knot in my stomach tightens just a little more. Saturday comes and June picks us up in a beat-up van. We drive out of the city, into the countryside. The roads get rougher. The landscape gets greener. It takes almost 2 hours. Kriselda sits next to me, quiet. June talks the whole way, pointing out landmarks, making jokes. He seems relaxed. I'm anything but. Finally, we turn off onto a dirt road, and June slows down. He points out the window and says, "There it is, Kuya, your land." I look out and see a plot of overgrown grass and weeds. No markers, no fence, no signs of ownership. just empty land. I say, "Are you sure this is it?" Jun laughs. He says, "Of course I'm sure. It's raw land, Kuya. That's why it's cheap. You develop it however you want." I step out of the van. Kriselda stays inside. I walk around, trying to picture it, trying to see what she saw in those photos, but all I see is nothing. I turn to Jun and say, "Where's the owner? I want to meet him." Jun's smile falters just slightly. He says, "He's still out of town, Kuya. I told you." I say, "Then how do I know this is really the plot? How do I know it's really for sale?" Jun's expression hardens. He says, "You don't trust me?" The air shifts. I say carefully, "I just want to verify. That's normal, right?" Jun shakes his head. He says, "Kuya, I've done everything for you. I found this land. I negotiated the price. I secured your deposit. And now you're questioning me?" Kriselda gets out of the van. She says, "Burton, stop. You're embarrassing me." I look at her. I say, "I just want to see proof," she says. "You're being paranoid." Jun has been nothing but helpful. I feel outnumbered, cornered. I back down. I say, "Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to be sure." Jun softens a bit. He says, "It's okay, Kuya. I understand. You're nervous. Big purchase. But trust me, this land is yours." We drive back in silence. Kriselda doesn't hold my hand. That night, I can't sleep. Something isn't right. The next morning, I tell Kriselda I need to run an errand. She barely looks up from her phone. I find a tricycle driver outside, a young guy named Lito. I say, "I need to go to the municipal office in Rizal. Can you take me?" He looks confused but nods. The ride takes over an hour. When we get there, I explain to the clerk what I'm looking for. She pulls up records on her computer. I give her the location Jun showed me. She frowns. She says, "Sir, that land is registered to a family. It's not for sale." My stomach drops. I say, "Are you sure?" She shows me the screen. Different name, different owner. Not Jun's friend. Not for sale. I feel the room spin. Lito, who's been waiting quietly, asks, "Sir, are you okay?" I shake my head. I say, "Take me back." On the ride home, Lito says gently, "Sir, you sure that land is yours? Many foreigners get tricked here." I don't want to say, but it happens. I don't answer. I can't. When I get back to the apartment, Jun is there. He's sitting with Kriselda, laughing about something. They both stop when they see my face. I say, "I went to the municipal office." Jun stands up. His face changes. He says, "You what?" I say, "The land isn't for sale. It's owned by someone else. It's not your friends." Jun explodes. He says, "You went behind my back after everything I did for you? You call me a liar?" I say, "I just wanted to verify." Kriselda steps between us. She says, "Burton, what the hell is wrong with you? Why would you do that?" I look at her, stunned. I say, "Because I paid $15,000 and I wanted to make sure it was real." Jun gets in my face. He says, "You think I stole from you? You think I'm some kind of thief?" I step back. I say, "I didn't say that. I just want answers." Kriselda grabs Jun's arm. She says something in Tagalog. Jun shakes his head, grabs his bag, and storms out. The door slams. I'm left standing there with Kriselda. She looks at me with cold eyes. She says, "You just ruined everything." That night, I lie in bed alone. Kriselda is in the living room. She hasn't spoken to me since Jun left. I stare at the ceiling and replay everything in my head. The land that doesn't exist. The deposit I sent. The surgery money for Malu. I grab my phone and open my banking app. I log in and look at my account. I scroll through the transactions. $15,000 for the land deposit. $3,000 for the surgery. $1,200 for rent Kriselda said she couldn't cover last month. $800 for bills. $500 here, $300 there. Over $40,000 gone. In less than 2 months. I feel like I'm going to be sick. I get up and walk into the living room. Kriselda is on the couch, scrolling through her phone. I say, "We need to talk." She doesn't look up. She says, "I'm tired, Burton." I say, "Kriselda, please, I need to understand what's going on." She finally looks at me. Her eyes are hard. She says, "What do you want me to say? That June tricked us both? Because maybe he did. Maybe I trusted the wrong person. I feel a flicker of hope. Maybe she's a victim too." I say, "Do you really believe that?" She stands up. She says, "I don't know what to believe anymore. All I know is you came here and made me feel like we had a future. And now you're acting like I'm some kind of criminal." I say, "I never said that." She says, "You didn't have to." I take a breath. I say, "I need to see the hospital receipts for Malou's surgery." Kriselda freezes. She says, "What?" I say, "I paid $3,000. I just want to see the receipt." She says, "I don't have it here." I say, "Can you get it?" She says, "Why? You don't trust me now either?" I say, "I just want proof, Kriselda. That's all." She shakes her head. She says, "I can't believe this. After everything." I say, "Can I talk to Malou? Can I see her?" Kriselda's face flushes. She says, "She's recovering. She doesn't want visitors." I say, "Just for a few minutes. I just want to make sure she's okay." Kriselda's voice rises. She says, "What? You think I lied about my own aunt's surgery? You think I'm that low?" I say quietly, "I don't know what to think anymore." She stares at me for a long moment. Then she says, "Maybe you should just go home, Burton. If you don't trust me, what's the point?" My chest tightens. I say, "I don't want to go home. I want us to figure this out." She turns away. She says, "I'm going to bed." She walks into the bedroom and closes the door. I hear the lock click. I stand there in the dark, alone. The next few days are agony. Kriselda barely speaks to me. When she does, it's cold and clipped. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I keep checking my phone, hoping for a message from June, some explanation, some proof. Nothing. I think about calling Brad, but I'm too ashamed. He warned me. He told me to be careful, and I didn't listen. One morning, I'm sitting alone in a cafe and Lito, the tricycle driver, pulls up. He sees me through the window and waves. I wave back. He parks and comes inside. He says, "Sir, you remember me?" I nod. He sits down across from me without asking. He says, "I've been thinking about you, sir." "About what happened?" I say, "It's okay. You don't need to worry about it." He says, "No, sir. I need to tell you something. Tito Jun. I know him. Not personally, but I know his reputation." My pulse quickens. I say, "What do you mean?" Lito leans in. He says, "He's done this before, sir. I've heard stories. Foreigners come, fall in love, invest money, and then the money disappears. It's always land, or a business, or some emergency, and June is always involved." I feel my hands start to shake. I say, "How many times?" Lito shrugs. He says, "I don't know exactly, but enough that people talk." "I'm sorry, sir. I should have said something sooner, but I didn't want to get involved." I sit back. My head is spinning. Lito says, "Do you have any proof? Contracts? Receipts?" I shake my head. I say, "Nothing. Just wire transfer confirmations." Lito looks sad. He says, "That's how they do it, sir. No paper trail. Just trust. I'm very sorry." He stands up and pats my shoulder. He says, "If you need help, I'm around." Then he leaves. I sit there for another hour, numb. When I get back to the apartment, I've made my decision. I walk in, and Kriselda is sitting on the couch. I say, "We need to talk. Right now." She looks up, annoyed. She says, "What now?" I say, I know about June. I know he's done this before. Her face doesn't change. She says, what are you talking about? I say, I talked to someone who knows him. He's scammed other foreigners, and you helped him. She stands up. She says, that's a lie. Who told you that? I say, it doesn't matter. What matters is you tell me the truth. Right now, about the land, about the surgery, about all of it. She crosses her arms. She says, I didn't know, Burton. If June scammed you, he scammed me too. I say, then show me the receipts. Let me talk to Malou. Prove it. She hesitates, just for a second. But I see it. I say, you can't, can you? She says, I don't have to prove anything to you. If you don't believe me, that's your problem. I feel something inside me break. I say, I gave you everything. I trusted you. I loved you. She looks at me with something close to pity. She says, if you really loved me, you wouldn't question me like this. That's when I know. That's when I finally see it. This was never real. I say quietly, I'm leaving. She doesn't try to stop me. She just says, fine, go. I packed my bag. It takes 10 minutes. She sits on the couch the whole time, watching me. As I reach the door, she says, you'll regret this, Burton. I stop. I turn around. I say, I already do. Then I walk out. I check into a cheap hotel near the airport. The room is small and smells like mildew, but I don't care. I sit on the edge of the bed and stare at the wall. My phone buzzes. It's Brad. He's been trying to reach me, I answer. He says, Burton, where the hell have you been? I've been worried sick. I say, I messed up, Brad. I messed up bad. He listens as I tell him everything. The land, the money, Kriselda, June. When I finish, there's silence. Then he says, Jesus, Burton, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I say, I should have listened to you. He says, forget that. What are you going to do now? I say, I'm coming home. There's nothing left for me here. He says, good, come home. We'll figure it out. That night, I can't sleep. I keep replaying every conversation, every moment, looking for where I went wrong, looking for the signs I missed. They were all there. I just didn't want to see them. Around midnight, there's a knock on my door. I freeze. I look through the peephole. It's Lito. I open the door. He says, Sir, I heard you were staying here. I wanted to check on you. I let him in. He sits down and says, I know this is hard, sir, but you're not the first, and you won't be the last. I say, why do they do it? Is it just the money? Lito thinks for a moment. He says, for some, yes, but for others, it's survival. Life is hard here, sir. People do what they have to do. I'm not saying it's right, but I understand why it happens. I appreciate his honesty. I say, I really thought she loved me. Lito nods. He says, maybe part of her did, sir, but love and need are different things. Sometimes people confuse them. I give him some money for his time. He refuses at first, but I insist. After he leaves, I lie in bed and stare at the ceiling fan, spinning slowly overhead. I think about Linda, about how simple things were with her, how honest. I miss her so much it physically hurts. 2 days later, I'm on a plane back to Indiana. I stare out the window as we take off, watching Manila disappear below. I wonder if Kriselda even noticed I left, if she cares. Probably not. The flight is long, and I don't sleep. I just think, and think, and think. When I land in Indianapolis, Brad is waiting at the airport. He sees me, and his face falls. I must look terrible. He gives me a hug and says, welcome home, brother. We drive back to my apartment in silence. When we pull up, everything looks exactly the same, like I never left, like the last 2 months were a dream. Brad helps me carry my bag inside. He says, you want me to stay? I shake my head. I say, I need to be alone for a while. He nods. He says, call me if you need anything. Anything at all. After he leaves, I sit on my couch and look around. The place feels emptier than before. Colder. I check my bank account one more time. $42,000 gone. I have about $28,000 left. My pension covers rent and basics, but I was counting on those savings for emergencies, for the future. Now I don't know what I have. Over the next few weeks, I try to get back into a routine. I go to the grocery store. I watch TV. I avoid people. Brad calls every few days, but I don't always answer. One day, I decide to start therapy. I find a counselor who specializes in grief and trauma. Her name is Dr. Pelletier. She's kind and patient. In our first session, she asks me what brought me in. I tell her everything. When I finish, she says, Burton, you were vulnerable. You were grieving, and someone took advantage of that. That's not your fault, but it feels like my fault. It feels like I should have known better. Over time, the sessions help. Slowly, I start to understand that my loneliness made me blind, that I was so desperate to feel loved again that I ignored every red flag. Dr. Pelletier says, grief makes us do things we wouldn't normally do. It doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. I want to believe her. Some days I do. Other days I just feel stupid. One afternoon, I'm scrolling through Facebook and I see Kriselda's profile. I know I shouldn't look, but I can't help it. She's posted new photos. She's smiling. She's standing next to an older white man. He looks about my age. Maybe older. They're at a restaurant. His arm is around her. The caption says, blessed and grateful. My stomach turns. I want to feel angry. I want to feel betrayed. But mostly I just feel empty. I close the app. I delete Facebook from my phone. I'm done. I call Brad that night. I say, I saw her with someone new. He says, don't torture yourself, man. She's not worth it. I say, I know, but it still hurts, he says. Of course it does, but you're going to get through this. You're stronger than you think. I want to believe him. I'm trying to believe him. Months pass. Winter comes. I start volunteering at a local food bank. It gives me something to do, something that feels useful. I meet people. I talk to them. Nothing deep, just surface stuff, but it helps. Slowly, I feel a little less alone. I still think about Kriselda sometimes. I wonder if she ever thinks about me. Probably not. I was just another mark, another foreigner with money and loneliness. But I'm learning to let it go, learning to forgive myself. It's a slow process. Some days are better than others. It's been almost a year since I came back from the Philippines. I'm sitting in my apartment on a cold February night. The wind howls outside. I'm drinking coffee and staring at my laptop. Dr. Pelletier suggested I write everything down. She said it might help me process. So here I am, writing. I think about what I lost, $42,000, my savings, my pride, my trust. But I also think about what I learned. I learned that grief can make you do desperate things. That loneliness is a powerful force. That love can't be bought, no matter how much you want it. I learned that I'm not immune to manipulation, that I'm not as smart as I thought I was. I learned that some people see vulnerability as opportunity, and I learned that I need to be okay with being alone, that being alone doesn't mean being unloved. Linda loved me. My friends love me. I can love myself. I don't need someone halfway around the world to validate my existence. I close the laptop and look around my apartment. It's quiet. It's small. It's mine. I think about Kriselda. I wonder if she's happy. I wonder if she ever feels guilty. I'll never know. And maybe that's okay. Maybe I don't need to know. Maybe I just need to move forward. I'm 63 now. I'm broke. I'm alone. But I'm awake. I'm not living in a fantasy anymore. I'm not pretending. I see things clearly now. And that clarity, painful as it is, feels like a kind of freedom. I think about Linda. about how she used to laugh at my stubbornness, about how she'd shake her head and say, "Burton, you're too trusting for your own good." She was right. But she also used to say, "That's what I love about you. You see the good in people." I still want to see the good in people. I just need to be smarter about it, more careful. I finish my coffee and stand up. I walk to the window and look out at the snow falling. It's beautiful in its own way. Quiet, clean, a fresh start. I'm not the same man I was a year ago. I'm not healed, but I'm healing. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's all I can ask for. I don't regret going to the Philippines. I regret not listening to myself. I regret ignoring the warning signs. But I don't regret trying. I don't regret opening my heart one more time, even if it got broken. Because at least I tried. At least I'm still capable of feeling something. And that has to count for something. Tomorrow, I'll wake up and go to the food bank. I'll talk to Brad. I'll go to therapy. I'll keep moving forward, one day at a time, one step at a time. I'm 63 years old. I'm broke. I'm alone. But I'm still here. And that's something. That's enough.